Hey there Poetry Pals, welcome back to another video. This week I am celebrating hitting 500 subscribers by doing a Q&A. Thank you for everyone who submitted a question. Let's get into it. Am I sipping my tea to buy time to think about this question? Yep. By the way, I hit 500 subscribers. Why don't you want to join the team? Click subscribe, turn on notification bells. I put out amazing videos every week about poetry and how to be a poet, and it's bloody fantastic. Make sure as well that you're following me on social media. I am Josie Alford Poet on all the things. Okay, question number 1 is, what advice would you give to someone who wants a career in poetry? This might not be the question you want to hear, but I think it is pretty impossible to have a career just doing poetry. And by that I mean just writing or just performing poetry. Everyone I know who works full-time as a freelance poet is doing multiple things at one time. So it's worth saying that I do not have a full-time career as a poet. Shockingly enough, 500 subscribers is not enough to make money off YouTube. By the way, if you want to support the hustle, you can buy me a coffee. I'll link it down below. So I actually work part-time. I have a job and I do poetry, and in the before times I performed poetry, and I'm working on getting my poems published in a book. But it's worth saying that even if you were, performing and selling books, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to get a regular income off that for at least several years of building up your career. I think that if you were really looking to build a career as a poet, as in an earning money career as a poet, I think you need to be realistic about where you're going to get money from and what other skills you can use to earn money. So for example, I also have experience in social media and marketing, so I do a lot of freelance social media work for poetry organisations. For example, Lyra, Bristol Poetry Festival, follow them on all the things. So yeah, to have a think about that. I know a lot of poets who do workshops in schools and teach kids how to write and perform poetry, and even Simon Armitage, who is the poet laureate, is a professor of poetry. He actually has to teach poetry to pay those bills, so that's something to bear in mind, is how else you're gonna make money, because career as a poet, kind of an oxymoron. Maybe? I'd also say learn how to apply for Arts Council funding. That's another good one. But also, one last thing, sorry, this is a really long answer to your question, but also I would say that I think people start writing poetry and way too early start thinking about how they can turn it into a career, when actually, do you know what, focusing a good amount of time to making your poetry as best as it can be is probably just as worthwhile. So constantly learn and improve on how to be better and develop your poetry. Because even if your poetry is cracking, if you're just writing the same thing over and over and over, you're going to go out of fashion and people aren't going to want to watch you anyway. Boom. Do you have any tips for creative block? Yes, make an accountability group. If you've got your own poetry pals, make a little group, get together and write together. And also silly poetry prompts are the best. I've talked about my book. I don't know where it is. My mum bought me a copy of a book called 642 Things to Write About, and it's got loads and loads of poetry prompts in it. And so doing that and having a regular scheduled time where you write and you make that time for it I think that some people like to write a poem every day. I personally don't try and maintain that because for me it's unrealistic. So I think, yeah, having a time to do it. Sort of related, it says, do you set yourself a routine or schedule to keep yourself motivated? So yes, I try and make sure that I'm writing at least once a week, whether that's by going to a writing workshop or just sitting down by myself and putting on some lo-fi beats and writing away. Yeah, I think that when you have creative block, okay, when you don't have creative block, you have loads of your own ideas and stuff like that, and that's really great. But I think when you do have creative block, maybe you don't have as many ideas, that's the time which you can spend sharpening your skills. So you could try writing sonnets or villanelles or pantoums. I've made videos on how to write all of these, by the way. And I think that if you are in creative block, trying to write in a restricted form is a really good way of just sharpening your skills while you're waiting for more ideas to come. And you can just write the poem about something ridiculous like Star Trek. I wrote a poem about Star Trek. Do you set yourself a routine or schedule to keep yourself motivated? Yes, but it's not the same every week. I just make sure that I make time to do it at least once a week. One thing I've realised is that doing the same thing every single week is not how I roll, but I like to have a set of goals for each week, and one of those is to sit down and write, so hope that's useful. Eyeliner tutorial. This is from my boss. I'm going to link in the description of the video my favourite eyeliner tutorials. I don't think I'm actually that good at eyeliner, probably because I've got quite a hood and I haven't quite got the thing. It's actually really deceptive that people think I don't have a hood, but that's because when I'm on camera I'm constantly looking at myself and like pulling my eyebrows up like yes, but actually my face just sits like this. So camera died. Fun stuff. It also got too warm, so I went and put a shirt on. Okay, cool. Next question. Will you keep any habits, changes, new mindset or approaches in your new normal routine now lockdown is easing? If yes, how and why will you do this? Well, I'll be honest, like my lockdown routine has not maintained throughout lockdown. I don't know how everyone else is dealing with this. So I went from working 5 days a week and fitting my creative practice around that to having a lot more free time. And because of the nature of my job, I've been off work for 5 months. And so even though lockdown in the UK is easing and you can now do a bit more things, life hasn't changed for me much over the last 5 months, and so but my routine has. I think at the beginning, when it was clear, you know, when we all thought this wouldn't last very long, I had quite a strict routine and then I just got way more chilled. So I guess the thing that I am going to keep doing is working out. I really struggled to fit exercise into my routine when I was working, partly because I'm super lazy, but lockdown's been a reminder for me that like working out is good for you. It's almost like when you're physically healthy, you're mentally healthy. So I'm going to do that. One of the things that I've definitely been doing a lot easier is this whole YouTube thing. So definitely want to try and stick with keeping these videos coming out weekly when I get back to work. So fingers crossed. I've also got back into reading a lot more. I didn't think I'd actually read that much in lockdown. I made a video called My Lockdown Reads, and turns out I've actually read quite a lot. Not as many as the actual booktubers, because those women are crazy. Are there any male booktubers? If there are, let me know in the comments below. Next question. Do you think your future poetry will change due to the historic year that is 2020? Has it shaped you as a poet? I think 2020 for me has given me the opportunity to break out of a writing, not rut I was in, but okay, for poetry in general, I think poetry as an industry, whether it's performance or reading, page poets, stuff like that, I think poetry as a whole, especially in the UK, is going to change and adapt. I think a lot of questions have come up about accessibility, and I think that's really interesting. However, for me, what lockdown has been is an opportunity to get back into writing poems that I've wanted to. So for those of you who know me, you'll know that I'm currently working on a collection about my father passing away. I've been writing about grief now for coming up 3 years, and do you know what? I'm really proud of these poems, and chances are I've still got a couple more in me, but before then, I was almost a comedy poet. I write really light-hearted, fun poetry, and for 3 years I haven't written any of that. And I know that lockdown for a lot of people has been a really difficult thing, but for me, lockdown has given me the opportunity to write fun stuff, not all just depressing stuff, and that's been really fun. I've got a really great idea for another collection that's just sort of hovering there, that I'm working on bit by bit, and that's really exciting. So yeah, I think that's it. And I think 2 things that have really helped me with that, well, is I've been on 2 writing workshops via Zoom. One, I've done a couple of Dan Simpson's poetry workshops, which are fantastic, and if you get the opportunity to go, I definitely recommend it. I'll put a link to Dan's website so you can find out more about that. Then the other one was a workshop run by Pete the Temp, which was commissioned by Siren Poets, and it was all about how to write with satire and joy about political subjects, and that's been really fun to play around with different forms and using satire and stuff like that. So that's how lockdown has changed my writing, is it has got me back to having fun with it, and that's awesome. Best podcast episode you've listened to during lockdown? I think it will have to be one of the Happiness Project podcast episodes. Probably the one about choice fatigue. I can't remember what episode it is, but the Happiness Lab is an amazing podcast run by a psychology lecturer at Yale, and it's all about the science of happiness, and her little intro for the podcast is something along the lines of, our brains are constantly telling us what we should do to be happy, but what if our brains are wrong? What if we don't know what truly makes us happy? And so she goes through and focuses on different topics on happiness and how to retrain your brain on what happiness really is. And I think one of the most useful ones for me was the choice one, because we're always convinced, especially in a capitalist society, that more choice means more things, which is good, whereas actually science shows us that more choice can sometimes be stressful because we're constantly thinking about what we're missing out on, and I personally found that very useful to bear in mind. So there you go. The most interesting thing you've learnt about yourself during this time? The most interesting thing I've learnt about myself during this time that I'm thoroughly uninteresting. Yeah, I was really going through it with anxiety earlier this year. Around February was a real rough moment for me, and I was going through therapy from February until the end of March, January till the end of March. And so I think that therapy did more for me to learn about myself than actually lockdown has. I think what lockdown has been for me is an opportunity to just slow down and let all of that sink in. I think that one of the things that I used to think when I was younger is that by the time you're in your late 20s, you know who you are. And I don't think that's true. So yeah, maybe that I'm still learning and growing. How to make the perfect mimosa. I'm very glad you asked. Everyone gets Bucks Fizz and mimosas confused. First of all, there'll be the purists among you that say that mimosa and Bucks Fizz have to be champagne. First of all, if you're drinking nice champagne, don't fuck about with orange juice, just drink the fucking champagne. But if you've got some cheap Prosecco because it's Saturday, you don't have any money, but you want to feel fancy, this is where the mimosa comes in. Now, Bucks Fizz is half and half, and that's fine. Okay, if you're in it for the long haul, you've got several bottles, but you know you can't drink as much as your friends, by all means go for the Bucks Fizz and have half orange juice and half Prosecco. But for me personally, the truly best mimosa is 1/4 orange juice, 3/4 Prosecco, and make sure both are really nice and cold. I think the cheaper the Prosecco, the more reason to have a mimosa rather than straight Prosecco. Personally, if it's a nice Prosecco that I can drink on its own, I'd prefer not to have orange juice. But that's how you make the perfect mimosa. So I got another question after I'd filmed my first Q&A, and I thought it was a good one, which was, how do you come up with inspiration? And I think that sometimes you have the poem there and you know what it is because it's something that's, you know, on your mind. Maybe it's something that's happening in the news, maybe it's something that's happening in your life, and you know, so you've got that, but other times that's less so, and I think that you've got to sort of go out and find stories or poetry prompts. So as I mentioned, my 642 things to write about is super useful, but there are also loads of poetry prompts available for free online, so just check those out. There's also like loads of prompt Facebook groups that you can join, so check those out as well. Yeah, I hope that's useful. And I think we had one more question that my mum sent me. How do you feel about looking after Albus and abandoning Trey? So today, which is actually last week for you guys, I'm going to my sister's house to babysit her puppy Albus. I'll put in a few pictures here, and you can actually follow him on Instagram if you want. He's at Albus the Dachshund, all one word. So I'm gonna go and puppy sit my sister's puppy for a few days, and I'm gonna go and stay at her house, and I'm abandoning Trey. And by abandon, it's a strong word, I am coming back. And do you know what, Mum? I'm really looking forward to it. I think that I have been in this house solidly for 5 months. I haven't been anywhere without Trey, and it's going to be really nice for a couple of days apart. Does that sound bad? No. No. I'm going to treat it like a writing retreat. I'm gonna take all my poetry books and I'm gonna do a writing retreat, and it's gonna be amazing. So that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. I'm really proud to have got to 500 subscribers. I know that that's not that much, but fuck it, I like it. And thank you to everyone who sent me questions. I hope you found this video useful. Please subscribe, as next week we are back on the poetry writing train. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Bye.